You may not be aware of it, but there is a war going on in this country. It is being fought in the streets of one of our biggest cities. People are dying in record numbers.
Gang violence in Los Angeles. More than a dozen dead every week. Neighborhood battles about drugs, turf, loyalty among 100,000 Crips and Bloods.
A Los Angeles-based rapper has died following a stabbing at a music festival in Exposition Park.
Both the LA Times and Rolling Stone are now reporting rapper Drakeo The Ruler was the victim in last night's scuffle.
It is a male in his 20s that was shot and killed inside this car. There are a lot of bullet holes inside that windshield. We zoomed in earlier. So they responded earlier this evening to reports of a man who was shot in the face and died at the scene.
The day the Inglewood family gang and Rollin 60s officially became enemies, peace left the city. This war has been raging for over 50 years, leaving a trail of chaos, violence, and destruction in its wake.
One more innocent victim of street violence, this time a 4-year-old boy, is in the hospital. He was shot last night at a home at 79th and Town Avenue in South Central Los Angeles.
What started as a classic red versus blue turf dispute in the 1970s eventually grew into a citywide, multi-set conflict. And before long, it spilled into hip-hop, claiming the lives of some of the fans' most beloved rappers. Let's dive in. So the war between the Inglewood family gang and the Rollin 60s was never just a simple hood versus hood beef. Before they were even Bloods, IFG started out in the early 1970s as a clique called the Chain Gang on the west side of Inglewood. This was back when Crips were just beginning to spread across South Central. As Crip sets expanded, they started pressing into Inglewood territory, and the Chain Gang found themselves constantly clashing with the early West Side Crips, the same foundation that later produced crews like the Rollin 60s. That pressure is part of what pushed IFG into officially joining the Blood Alliance. From that point on, it became a classic red versus blue situation, Crips pushing into Inglewood, Bloods holding their ground. Over time, IFG grew into one of the biggest blood hubs in the area, controlling turf roughly from Crenshaw to Van Ness and stretching deep from the high 70s down into the 90s streets. They weren't some small neighborhood set. They had multiple cliques and strong alliances with other blood gangs, making them a serious force. On the other side, the Rollin 60s Neighborhood Crips came up in the mid-70s, branching off the original West Side Crips associated with Stanley Tookie Williams. The 60s eventually planted themselves in the Hyde Park, Crenshaw area of South LA and exploded in size. Today, they're widely considered one of the largest black gangs in Los Angeles, with thousands of members and several internal cliques holding different blocks. But the real turning point came in the 1980s, when Rollin 60s and 8-Tray gangster Crips, once allies, fell out and kicked off the first major Crip-on-Crip war. That split reshaped everything. Gangs across South LA suddenly had to choose sides. If you rode with the 60s, you became part of the neighborhood, or deuce car. That included Rollin 90s, Rollin 100s, and other NHC sets. If you sided with 8-Tray, you were gangster, or Tray. That divide still defines alliances today. This is where IFG comes back into the picture, because they already had beef with the Rollin 60s and the wider Neighborhood Crips. IFG strategically linked up with 8-Tray. From there, IFG found themselves fighting not just one Crip set, but an entire neighborhood network that included the 60s, 90s, and 100s. The bottom line is that this isn't a random street drama. It's generations of alliances, betrayals, and turf battles stacked on top of each other. And that's where this whole story gets darker, because after all the history, alliances, and street politics, the war didn't stay locked in the past. It followed people into the modern era, even into music. Over the years, Drakeo The Ruler built a reputation as a Crip-affiliated rapper who didn't really move like most artists tied to one side. He had relationships with Crips, but he also had blood connections and seemed comfortable floating between both worlds. For a long time, that flexibility helped him survive in Los Angeles' tense street ecosystem. But eventually, things went left, and one beef in particular would end up defining the final chapter of his life. Somewhere along the line, Drakeo fell out with members of the Inglewood family gangster Bloods, IFGB. That tension wouldn't just stay on the streets or in whispers, it would turn into one of the most talked about theories surrounding the events that led to his death. The situation traces back to December 10th, 2016. That night, an IFGB member named Davion Gregory, better known as Red Bull, was killed in a shooting. According to reports, Red Bull and two associates were on their way to a naughty or nice pajama jam at a warehouse when gunfire erupted. Red Bull was hit and didn't survive. The other two were wounded but lived. Witnesses later described seeing two vehicles, a black Mercedes SUV and either a red Mustang or a red Benz, speeding away from the scene. Police recovered shell casings from a .40 Glock and a .38 revolver, and that evidence eventually led investigators in Drakeo's direction. Drakeo, his brother Ralphie the Plug, and another Stink Team affiliate named Kells were arrested and charged. Authorities alleged that Drakeo had supplied the weapons used in the shooting, claiming the hit was meant to catch an IFGB affiliate named RJ Slipping. The charges were heavy: first-degree murder, multiple counts of attempted murder, conspiracy, and gun enhancements. It was the kind of case that could have buried him forever. But after years of fighting it in court, the case unraveled. In 2019, Drakeo was acquitted of the most serious charges, and in 2020, he finally walked free. After his release, Drakeo didn't move quieter. If anything, he leaned harder into disrespect, especially toward IFGB and people associated with Inglewood. One name that kept hovering around the tension was YG, a rapper closely tied to Inglewood and its politics. YG never directly named Drakeo in public, but in interviews, including one on No Jumper, he made his stance clear. He said he wasn't the type to handle beef through music. If something needed to be addressed, it would be addressed in real life.
I'm not finna be going out there doing no rap diss and cause like, if it's smoke, it's really smoke with us. We ain't playing, you know? All that rap beef and all that shit, we not rap beefing, we really beefing. The homies gonna get you.
To a lot of people watching, it didn't feel subtle at all. Drakeo took it that way too. By 2021, the situation had fully spilled into the music. On August 20th, Drakeo previewed a new track on Instagram Live called Inglewood. From the jump, it was obvious this wasn't just a slick jab, it was a full-blown diss aimed at the entire city of Inglewood. Fans immediately flooded the comments, daring him to shoot the video in Inglewood if he was really built like that. Drakeo, being Drakeo, didn't back down. He warned anyone watching not to test him. When the full version of Inglewood finally dropped, there was no mistaking the intent. The song was ruthless. Drakeo mocked Inglewood, disrespected its rappers, and took shots at its street culture. He claimed he'd turn all of California against the city, labeled its residents weenies, and accused them of snitching. One bar in particular shocked even some of his own supporters, a line that appeared to reference an Inglewood affiliate named Munchie, who had been shot in the head and left blind. Drakeo rapped about dropping 50 on a blind person, which many took as a reckless allusion to putting money on Munchie's head.
Drop 50 on a blind, he ain't see it coming.
At that point, Inglewood wasn't just a diss song. It felt like a declaration of war. Things escalated even further when the Inglewood music video premiered on September 7th, 2021. Fans praised Drakeo's fearlessness, but the video also brought unwanted attention from law enforcement. Just one day later, Drakeo was arrested while riding in the back of an Uber, an arrest that unfolded live on Instagram. Visibly frustrated, Drakeo questioned how police even knew he was in the car, making the moment even heavier. His young son was sitting with him in the vehicle.
That's just crazy. I jumped in the Uber, bro, to pick up my son, bro. Literally.
5 out of 1, have all units respond.
My son is in the car, bro. This is crazy, bro.
Drakeo was pulled out and taken into custody as viewers watched in real time. Online speculation immediately took over, with many assuming he'd been caught with a firearm again. After posting bail, Drakeo went live once more, this time accusing his enemies of snitching and telling the police where to find him. He was convinced that people from Inglewood were actively trying to get him locked back up. Around this same period, fans began expressing real concern. On the Cali Banging subreddit, a space where California gang politics are closely followed, one user made a chilling observation. They pointed out that Drakeo's increasingly reckless behavior, especially the non-stop dissing, was pushing him toward an unavoidable ending. To some, it felt like watching a slow-motion car crash. By the time Inglewood dropped, Many believe Drakeo had crossed a line he couldn't come back from. Naturally, Inglewood wasn't going to let the diss track slide without a response, leading to the untimely death of Drakeo. Drakeo the Ruler was fatally stabbed backstage at the Once Upon a Time in LA festival at Bank of California Stadium on December 18, 2021. Drakeo was scheduled to perform on a stacked lineup that included Snoop Dogg, Ice Cube, 50 Cent, YG, and several others. That night was supposed to be a big moment for Drakeo, a major West Coast festival, huge names on the bill, and a chance to reconnect with fans after everything he'd been through. Instead, things turned tragic fast. According to reports, an altercation broke out backstage. Drakeo was attacked by a group of people and stabbed in the neck. Paramedics arrived around 8:40 p.m., rushed him to the hospital in critical condition, but he later died from his injuries.
Drakeo the Ruler has died after being stabbed backstage at a Los Angeles concert where he was set to perform. He was 28 years old.
In the months after his death, authorities hadn't announced any arrests, and even now, no one has been taken into custody. Next up is Indian Red Boy, born Zariel Dijon Rivera, a young rapper out of Long Beach who was just starting to find his voice. He began making music as a teenager, literally recording tracks on his laptop and slowly building a catalog from his bedroom. By 2020 and 2021, he dropped projects like Game Over and EVA, and even after his death, posthumous releases kept drawing new listeners. His sound was raw and experimental, mixing street realism with offbeat flows. He wasn't famous yet, but he was grinding, and people could see potential in him. But his life took a dark turn months before he was killed. It all started with a moment that seemed small at the time, but carried massive consequences. A mural honoring Nipsey Hussle in the Crenshaw district was vandalized. Nipsey wasn't just a rapper, he was respected across LA, across gang lines, and across generations. So when word spread that someone had defaced his mural, the city took it personal. Indian Red Boy didn't actually spray the wall, but he did appear in a video standing next to a friend known as Baby Capone, laughing and posing in front of the damaged mural.
Capone, huh? Capone. Yeah. Wall banging Capone, okay. Yeah.
That alone was enough. In the streets, presence equals participation. To a lot of people, that video looked like co-signing the disrespect, and that's where things really went left. Indian Red Boy was affiliated with the Inglewood family gangster Bloods, which already placed him in dangerous territory. Once that mural video circulated, he became marked almost instantly. A lot of people who loved Nipsey felt disrespected, and that anger spread fast. Then came July 8, 2021. That afternoon, Indian Red Boy was sitting in his car inside a gated apartment complex in Hawthorne. He was on Instagram Live, casually talking with Baby Capone like it was any normal day.
Like, you ain't got nothing on you right now. What would you do, fool?
Around 4:10 p.m., everything changed. A gunman walked up on foot, and without warning, shots rang out. Indian Red Boy was hit multiple times, including in the head. Still on live, bleeding badly. He tried to call for help. Viewers watched in real time as blood poured from his nose and he struggled to speak. He told his friend to get help and even tried to give his location. The live stream captured his final moments as he slowly faded. Police arrived shortly after and found him with multiple gunshot wounds. He was pronounced dead at the scene. He was only 21 years old.
There are a lot of bullet holes inside that windshield. We zoomed in earlier and saw that. So they responded earlier this evening to reports of a man who was shot in the face and died at the scene. So again, coroners just wrapped up their investigation. We're watching the family over here on the side, very distraught, as you can imagine.
Authorities later said it appeared he had been targeted. Investigators pointed to the mural incident and his association with Capone as major factors, believing the shooting was retaliation tied to the Nipsey Hussle disrespect. Street talk added other possible layers: gang politics, personal beefs, unresolved tensions. But the main story most people landed on was simple. That mural video put a target on his back. After his death, things got even uglier. Rivals mocked the killing online, calling it a Hawthorne package, turning a young man's final moments into jokes and memes. And then there's Nipsey Hussle. Technically, Nipsey's murder wasn't an Inglewood family's hit. Legally, It was an internal Rollin 60s conflict, but he's still central to this story because of how he moved. Nipsey openly repped the 60s, yet he refused to stay boxed into old street rules. He worked with blood artists, crossed invisible lines, and constantly preached ownership, unity, and elevation. One of his most notable collaborations was with YG, who's closely tied to Inglewood. That partnership alone raised eyebrows. Nipsey didn't care. He wasn't trying to follow rigid politics built on decades of violence. He was focused on building bridges. That mindset came to a head during the shoot for YG's Girls Ain't Ish video. Nipsey invited YG straight into Rollin 60s territory. That didn't sit well with certain people at the top. Word is, they made it clear they disapproved. But Nipsey stood on his decision. According to street sources, he even got into physical altercations with multiple Rollin 60s members, just to make sure YG could be there safely. He was willing to fight his own people to protect his guest and prove a point about unity.
A real ratchet, I ain't wife and shit. No, cut it off, light switches.
And while moments like that may have added tension around him, Nipsey's official cause of death came down to something much more personal. On March 31st, 2019, Nipsey pulled up to his Marathon clothing store on Crenshaw and Slauson, his home turf. He wasn't scheduled to appear and didn't have security. He was simply there to grab clothes for a friend who had just come home from prison. That's when Eric Holder arrived in a white Chevy Cruze. Holder walked up, shook Nipsey's hand, and they had a brief conversation. Witnesses later said Nipsey mentioned rumors of paperwork, street slang implying someone might have snitched. Nipsey didn't threaten him, but the comment shook Holder. He left the parking lot, circled the block, loaded 2 firearms, and returned minutes later. Without warning, Holder walked up and opened fire, hitting Nipsey multiple times. 2 other men were also wounded. As Holder ran back to his car, witnesses said he kicked Nipsey while he lay on the ground, then fled. Nipsey was rushed to the hospital and pronounced dead at just 33 years old.
It's the dramatic last video of rapper Nipsey Hussle, gunned down in Los Angeles.
Oh my goodness!
The killing sent shockwaves through Los Angeles. Thousands gathered at Crenshaw and Slauson. Memorials popped up across the city. Even people who weren't fans of his music felt the loss. Nipsey wasn't just a rapper. He was someone who invested in his neighborhood and represented real hope for change. Holder was arrested 2 days later in Bellflower. After a lengthy trial, he was convicted of first-degree murder, 2 counts of attempted voluntary manslaughter, and firearm enhancements. In February 2023, he was sentenced to 60 years to life, effectively guaranteeing he'll spend the rest of his life behind bars. Nipsey's death sparked something powerful. Crips and Bloods from Watts, Compton, Inglewood, and South LA came together for peace walks and meetings. Old rivals marched side by side. His name became a rallying point for ending long-standing beefs. Then, there were other deaths tied to this same long-running war. One of them was Devon Red Bull Gregory, an Inglewood family gangster blood member who was killed on December 31st, 2016, at a pajama party in Carson. He was shot 5 times. Court documents later confirmed what many already suspected. The victim was IFG, and the shooter, Michael Buchanan, was affiliated with the Rollin 100s, part of the Neighborhood Crip car. Buchanan was eventually convicted of first-degree murder with special circumstances, including lying in wait, shooting from a vehicle, and committing the crime for gang benefit. He was also hit with multiple attempted murder charges. That case matters because it's basically the legal backbone behind a lot of the street talk surrounding Drakeo the Ruler. To many, this shooting represents one of the key moments in the Neighborhood versus IFG conflict. The spark that set off a chain reaction of retaliation, arrests, diss tracks, and eventually, more bodies. Then there's Drakeo Williams. He was just 18 years old, an Inglewood family blood member, killed on the 8600 block of South Crenshaw Boulevard in Inglewood. All of this paints a bigger picture. Even with peace walks and truces announced in 2022, the tension never really disappeared. You can't erase 5 decades of bloodshed overnight. Truce or not, the pain is still baked into the blocks, the murals, and the music.